Welcome back to the Metal Exchange. Justin and Chris here with you for another episode. What can I say? Power Quest week is over, and we are celebrating July 4th weekend by doing an album that is not in English. Chris, my man, how are you?
You said the magic word, weekend.
Yeah. This is going to be fun. This comes in by request from one of our listeners, TJ. It's X Japan's Blue Blood album from 1989. I'm pretty sure we wouldn't have covered this if it wasn't for a request. Although I do have some fun stories about this band, so I'll share them when we get into it. But before we get there, how was your week? And did you listen to anything new and exciting?
I listened to Power Quest all week. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, a couple of new singles. Stradivarius dropped another single from their upcoming Survive album and the song's called World on Fire. And I got like kind of like the Nemesis era vibes from this one, which is one of probably my favorite post Timo Tolkki Stradivarius album. So I think that bodes well. I'm really excited about this album. Have you had a chance to listen to the new single?
I haven't. I listened to the first one. I thought it was very good. If it's in that Nemesis mold, I'm all in. I thought that was much like yourself. I thought it was the best album post Timo Tolkki. And I'll say this, having listened to them live again and obviously enjoying that show a couple of weeks ago, it's kind of renewed my interest in the band. I'm not going to say that I hadn't been listening to them, but like they were kind of off the radar and I've been listening to a bunch of new stuff. This is, breathing new life into the band for me. So I'm very excited about the album.
Yeah, I've seen people that have said that like they actually prefer the post Timo Tolkki era Stradivarius, which I mean I can understand. The band, considering that their main creative head left, I feel like the band really kind of kept that the general feeling of the music, but while kind of giving it a new flavor and keeping the band interesting. And I think the fact that Timo Kotipelto and Jens Johansson remained with the band kind of just kept it like true to its roots while still branching out. So it's when you talk about like bands and a band like Hammerfall where it's kind of gotten really stale, I feel like Stradivarius has avoided like hitting that kind of stale streak. So it's cool to still be excited about their albums when they've been around since the late 80s.
Yeah, totally. It's they've kept it, I guess, modern. If I'll say it, maybe that's the best way to do it. It's more of a modern power metal vibe with the Nemesis type stuff and that first single that I heard. But certainly staying true to its roots and its core sound, obviously with the keyboards and Timo Kotipelto over the top. So good stuff. Good stuff. Anything else?
Yeah. Charlotte Wessels, who, ex vocalist from Delain, announced that she'll be releasing her second solo album, Tales from 6 Feet Under Volume 2, and she dropped a new single called Against All Odds. And it was not a Phil Collins cover, as I initially would have assumed, but it actually is this really nice acoustic, very like atmospheric, almost indie rock kind of style song. But I mean, I'm always happy to hear Charlotte sing, no matter what style she's singing in. So I'm looking forward to hearing her second solo album. I know she has a really strong following on Patreon, where a lot of these songs are released ahead of time, where the fans can kind of get their hands on the songs before the album is released. And there's probably other stuff too that doesn't make it onto the album, so that I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, it's nice to see that Charlotte's still out there doing stuff. And it sounds like Delain is, I guess they were asked to join a festival lineup in Europe, so which is coming up really soon. So it looks like we may be getting some insight into who's going to be in this reformed version of the band sooner than later. And I'm very curious to both see who's in the band and also, hear what kind of style the band is going to go into going forward. So it's looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm very curious as well. the little samples, I won't even say singles because we don't know what they're going to do, but the little samples I've heard with kind of like the muted vocals over the top, it has me intrigued. I just have no idea what it's going to be. I know Charlotte has kind of gone into that alt rock sound, which is fine. It's just I mean that's what her last album was like, and I'm not terribly surprised there. Delain sounds like it's going to try to stay true to its kind of roots in terms of their sound, but we don't know. Time will tell, and I think that we'll have a lot more clarity certainly over the next coming, the next few months.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I am eagerly awaiting because they've always been a band that I've gravitated towards, and yeah, being that Martine is a has always been a big creative force behind the band. I'm wondering if this is going to be more of a throwback to like the Lucidity April Rain days, but where this was, I think, before Charlotte was doing a portion of the songwriting. So
Here's
should be
hoping.
interesting. And
I will, I know I said it when we did our Delain episode. I stand by the fact I think April Rain is their best album. So anything that they can do that sounds like that, I'm going to be happy with. Not that I didn't enjoy the evolution. I thought obviously their sound has evolved over time, but I happen to be partial to that album and to that sound. So we'll see what happens.
yeah, it's exciting. How about you? Did you catch on to anything new?
Yeah, I got a couple of things actually. There's a band that came out with a new album. The band is called 2020 or otherwise MMXX, which is kind of the Roman numerals for 2020. It was kind of a I guess inspired by the lockdown and everything that had gone on during the global pandemic, and it was basically a couple of guys out of Rome and a couple of guys out of New York City that got together and did this like melodic death metal. Not I should say melodic death metal, more of like melancholic death metal thing that's going on. I haven't heard the album. I don't even think it's out yet, but I did hear one song called "This Breath Is Not My Breath," and it features the singer from Swallow the Sun, Miko, who is a fantastic vocalist. He does this one track, which happens to be the first track, and then it's just a slew of who's who of interesting vocalists. You have Mick Moss from Antimatter, you have Carmelo Orlando from November, Dan Swano from Edge of Sanity, Jan Leigner from Clone, and just a bunch of other singers as well. If you're into that like slow, almost Catatonia esque death metal style, this might be for you. I'll definitely post that one track during the week. I think it's really well done. A second thing that I heard was a band, I believe, out of Finland called Egress, Egres. They came out with an EP called Introspection, and they kind of classify themselves as cinematic progressive metal. It really hit home. It had a fantastic singer, female vocalist over the top of this, almost Savatage-esque prog metal type thing that they're doing. Really well done. Nobody's talking about it, and as of now, it's probably my EP of the year. So definitely worth checking that out. And one other band I wanted to mention, I wasn't sure if I should put this up front or at the back end because they have just announced their intention to come out with a new album. But that is Sweden's Bloodbath. These guys are kind of a death metal supergroup that have been around for probably 25 years now. And although the lineup has changed over time, the new single that I heard was fantastic. It's called Zombie Inferno, and I have to say that even though it is true death metal, I think you would like it. It has enough melody to it that I think that you would really catch on to it, and they've had just like a who's who of artists over the years. Micah Ackerfeld from Opeth, Dan Swano, who, as I mentioned earlier, had been with the band for some time, Per Eriksson on guitar. It's just a who's who of band members with this band. And currently on lead vocals is Nick Holmes, who is the singer of Paradise Lost. So they just do whatever they're doing it right. And for me to be talking about a death metal album for this long, I'm really excited to hear this. I'm going to definitely post this as well. A, it's a little bit out of our wheelhouse, but B, I think that you might actually appreciate this.
Cool. Yeah, I of those three, I have gotten a chance to listen to one of the songs from the Egress EP, and it's actually on one of the playlist that I posted recently. But the other two I haven't heard yet, so I look forward to getting a chance to check those out.
Nice. And with that, let's get to the reason why we are here. Blue Blood, X Japan's album from April 21st, 1989, by request. Apparently, this album was the band's second release, and at the time, they weren't even called X Japan. They were just called X, which would be one of the tracks on the album as well. Had you had any exposure to this band, or was this literally like your first time hearing anything by this band?
Here and there. I of all the songs, the one that I think I heard the most was "Art of Life," which is their like 29-minute song from 1993. And then I think I'd mentioned last week that Kurenai was something that I had heard Damnation Angels cover. But beyond that, I mean, I wasn't super familiar with the band. I just kind of understood that they were this like I don't know if speed metal would be the right way to describe it, but just speedy kind of like power metal kind of style. But I had no idea that they went back to into the 80s. I kind of assumed that they were more modern. So it was cool to kind of get a chance to listen to these guys finally.
What's interesting to me is that this band is huge. I mean, absolutely huge in Japan. And the reality is they've only recorded like five albums, and they haven't recorded really anything new since 1996. But yet, like, there's there's like an allure, or there's some sort of like underground cult like following for these guys, where they're still able to play stadium shows or big arena shows, having really only recorded, like I said, five albums and nothing in the nothing of substance in the last since the millennium. That's crazy to me, but they managed to do it, and whenever they announce a show, it is at a big venue and it is a big deal. I'll get to their New York City show that they played in 2014 a little later. But I have to be honest, before listening to this album, and I listened to it quite a bit, much like yourself, I was very familiar with Art of Life, the album or the song, however you want to classify it. But other than that, I really didn't know much from any of their other albums. So this was the first time I kind of did a real deep dive into their music, and it was really interesting because I didn't realize that stuff like this was coming out of Japan in the 80s.
Yeah, I don't know that I I don't know that I have anything to add to that. I pretty much hit the nail on the head. I have to say I am I was very shocked at finding out how popular this band was. When you told me that they played an arena show and it was like sold out or just jam packed, I was like, wow, that's kind of weird considering I don't know much of anything by this band. So
Yeah, it's wild, and they, like I said, they have this following that just it's fascinating, and the story behind the band is crazy. They basically they started in 1982, ultimately kind of broke up around 1998, got back together just before, I guess it was sometime around 2007, and have been together ever since. But again, have not gone really back into the studio to do anything. So it's kind of interesting, and they blend a lot of different styles. You talk about the speedy power metal, I definitely hear that, but they definitely have this glam thing going on as well. I think there's a little bit of punk or thrash in their sound. It's kind of all over the map. And I think that that's what was so fascinating about this particular album. It seemed like every song was going in a different direction. And I just didn't know what was going to happen next. And I have to say, we've now covered probably close to 100 albums. This was by far the weirdest album that we've covered. Not just because I didn't understand a single word, but really because it was just all over the place. And the only thing that would come to mind is something like Haggard, which was like also really kind of off the beaten path or what have you. But short of that, you kind of knew what you were getting, for better or for worse. This, I had no idea that first playthrough what was going to happen next. And some of the comparisons that I think I'm going to make very, very soon, I think you're going to laugh at, because you would never think that some of these bands would be either influences of or ultimately influenced by this album. So it's definitely a unique experience.
yeah, for sure. I mean, like the vocals at times reminded me of certain things. There were songs that made me think of Halloween. There were songs that made me think of Deep Purple. Like it was really interesting. The vocalist gives me like kind of reminds me of like a raspy Steve Perry in a lot of ways. I believe his name is Toshi. Um, I kind of like that they all go by like one name, which is kind of
Yeah,
adds to
sure.
the mystique. Vince, I feel like Vince McMahon would approve. He hates people that have last names. Ask Cesaro. Uh, but yeah, I definitely got a Steve Perry kind of vibe, but like this more kind of raw, like raspy, kind of not as smooth, but you know, kind of more of a kind of like a Bruce Springsteen kind of rasp mixed with the kind of that range of a Steve Perry. So I
Yeah,
don't know
it's
if you caught
fascinating.
any of that.
I did, and I guess no better time than now. Let's go through the lineup. It's Toshi on vocals, Pata and Hide on guitars, Taiji and Yoshi on bass, and Yoshiki on drums and piano. Yoshiki is kind of the driving force behind the band. He is self-described as the band leader, so he is credited with a lot of the musical interludes that you'll hear on this album as well, and obviously Toshi on vocals, who is the front man of this band. Uh, they've had a ton of revolving door members, especially in that early 80s period. I mean, it was like one after the other with people just coming into the band and
Are
leaving.
you gonna name them all like I did with Power Quest? Or?
Absolutely, positively not. I'm not going to even bother attempting to do that. But it's other than this revolving door of guys, I mean, I just think I'd be remiss not to mention Taiji, the bass guitar player, died in 2011. Hide, the lead guitarist, died in 1998, and they actually do tributes to both of these guys during their live shows because they were such an integral part of the band. But the foundation or the core of the band remains intact to this day from the early days of the early 80s.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to hear that two of the members had passed away. It's a bummer to say the least, but yeah, it sounds like the band, you know, like you said, did some tributes, and I my understanding is that they're still planning on releasing another album at some point, so might be something worth visiting. When
So then, obviously, it begs the question: what comes out first, this or the new Winter Sun album that I think everybody's been waiting for? So your guess is as good as mine, but this is Japan's answer to Winter Sun.
it's going
We'll
to
see
be
what happens.
Secret Door number 3, Chinese Democracy Part 2.
God help
Yeah,
us all. Let's get right into it. The album opens with a song called Prologue, otherwise known as World Anthem. This is like your standard fare, I feel like, introduction for the time, and could have easily been on like one of the Keeper of the Seven Keys albums in terms of the way they just structured it and before it gets into the title track. Any thoughts on this thing? It was good, but just like kind of what you'd expect, like very kind of cookie cutter for me.
Yeah, it's kind of like you know how Halloween on those Keeper of the Seven Keys albums, which we talked about recently, have both had that kind of like instrumental intro. Um, I was it was interesting. I read that it's actually a reworking of a Mahogany Rush song
Yeah.
called "The World Anthem," which was written by Frank Marino, who I only know because Halloween covered one of his songs on the Metal Jukebox album. I'm going to do a quick. Juggernaut was the name of the song, which I didn't know. And Mahogany Rush is a band that I only know of because they're mentioned in Wayne's World when Wayne says, "I feel like I've been put in the delete bin of life, like Mahogany Rush." Um,
I had
so
no idea this was a cover as well, but I'm glad you brought that up. It's I shouldn't say a cover, but we'll say heavily inspired by really interesting stuff. They go into this opening track, Blue Blood, and I couldn't believe it. But I was trying to put like the time together and everything else. My immediate thoughts were Blind Guardian. It has that really heavy speed metal guitar riff at the beginning with the drums underneath. And although the vocal style is obviously not Hansi Kirsch, it has such a strong early German power metal vibe to it with just a touch of thrash. really, really interesting start to the album, and kind of different from what would come afterwards, because this song is really fast and really, really heavy.
Yeah, I kind of wish that this was the entrance music for Lord Stephen Regal and Squire Dave Taylor but was it the Earl
Earl
Bobby?
Bobby Eaton. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. Why I know that, don't ask. But yes, the Duke
uh,
of Earl Bobby Eaton.
yeah. This is definitely a like guns a blazing opening track, just like where this was what I was expecting the band to sound like right off the bat. Just very energetic. I definitely get like that opening kind of guitar intro is very Blind Guardian esque, so I totally hear you there. But yeah, this is kind of my real like introduction to really, really listening to this band, and I wanted to listen to this album at least one more time, but in the middle of the week I got a migraine and I just didn't feel like listening to anything. So I think I felt like I would have been well served listening to this album at least one more time. But I like this a lot. Just it's full of energy, and I feel like you have to remember this came out in 1989. I feel like you didn't really have a lot of music that sounded like this at the time. I mean, definitely Halloween comes to mind. Um, but it has a little bit more. It feels like it has more music, like technicianship, if that's a word, than like your Iron Maidens and your Queensryches of the time. There's more of that kind of. I don't know how you want to say it, but I don't know. It's kind of like there's a little bit of progressive elements that are married with the kind of a speedy power metal kind of thing, and that's why like initially I thought of Halloween when I first started listening to this.
Yeah, I definitely hear that. And I don't know if it's because of like the layered approach that they kind of use to lay these tracks down or what have you. But there's definitely more to it than, you know, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son that had come out the year before or something like that. It's just more, it's denser for sure. We get to the next track, Weekend. I'll let you have the floor with this one. What are your thoughts on this? Because I have thoughts.
I didn't know anybody enjoyed the weekend quite nearly as much as I do, but X Japan has given me a run for my money here. It's a good song. Obviously, the chorus is a little repetitive because it's literally the word weekend repeated over and over again, which I believe is the only English word in the song. It's also two words, so it's more of like a weekend than a weekend. But again, this is kind of similar to the first track in that there's a lot of space for the guitar work to kind of shine through the solos and what have you. It's a little repetitive, and some of these songs, Orgasm is another one that kind of has this like repeating chorus kind of vibe. But a good song. I don't know that I liked it as much as the first track, or I should say the first full length song, Blue Blood. But solid song.
I hated this song the first like three times that I listened to it. I couldn't wait for it to be over.
You love working and you won't
Oh
record
God,
it.
do I love the weekdays? And then I hear this. It's like it's got this mid-paced sound to it. The verses are very catchy. The chorus, to your point, is extremely repetitive, and in my opinion, the song is about 2 minutes too long. Like they could have just chopped off 2 minutes at the end, and it probably would have been tighter. And then something happened on Thursday. I don't know what it was, but I listened to this song. I'm like, you know
Closer to
something?
the weekend.
It got closer to the weekend, and I'm like, I kind of like this. And then I listened to it again at the gym this morning. I'm like, there's like a subtle brilliance here, and I can't even explain it. And now it's going to be my song of the week. I can't get this thing out
Wow.
of my head. It's not my favorite song. It's not the best song, quote unquote, but it is my song of the week because I want
Song of the
people to listen to
weekend,
this.
it should be.
Yes, absolutely. It was there was just something about it that really grew on me, and like, I don't know. I should hate this track. I did hate this track, and now all of a sudden it's my song of the week. I can't stop. I have to hear it again, and I think everyone else should too.
Yeah, again, or this and Orgasm, I think were the two songs that just kept maybe just the repetition, but I just they were the ones that would get stuck in my head throughout the week. But like the beginning of the song is has kind of like a, I don't know if Deep Purple's the right band, but kind of like a 70s kind of hard rock intro.
Yeah.
But then like it just gets into like, you know, the fast guitars in between the verses and the chorus and what have you. So yeah, I mean, I'm not really I'm not really terribly surprised that you chose this for your song of the weekend. So
Easy Fight Rambling. Really cool name. And it almost has like this scat like vibe to it. Has an awesome like guitar solo about midway through, this like slow, sustained guitar solo, and is definitely different from the first two tracks. I couldn't help but think Van Halen when I heard this.
I really like the way that it comes in with the drums. Like, yeah, like this really kind of like staccato drum, like just to get the ball rolling, and then the guitars come in, and this is another cool song. It's just like high energy music. Like it's I mean, coming like off of talking about Power Quest for a whole week, like it kind of in that vein. It's just the kind of thing that if you need kind of something to pick you up, or you want to just tap your foot and just listen to something that you kind of want to like snap along to, and it's just
Yeah.
really infectious kind of, you know, beat to it. And this is just another song that I think is in that style. You know, they do have like some slower songs that we'll get to, but again, like more showing off like the guitar work, and this one has maybe like a little bit, I don't know if it's like a bluesy or a jazzy kind of thing going on. It's a little less aggressive as the last two songs,
Yeah,
but
I
it
think
is.
bluesy is a good word for it. It definitely has that like I don't want to say Jimmy Page ish guitar, but like it has that blues style, almost like a Chuck Berry type of thing, more so than it has, you know, like a power metal type of thing. Whereas, which quite frankly, I think is a big contrast to X, because that track just screams Halloween. And when I hear Halloween, I'm not even talking Keepers. To me, this is like Walls of Jericho, because it has this thrashiness to it with that double bass and that riff at the beginning. This song is like, may as well have been taken off of Walls of Jericho. And it's a really good pick me up after the scattiness of the of the last track. I actually enjoy this track a lot more than I should, X. It has this little catchy bridge, and even though I have no idea what the lyrics are, I would love to know what the translation is, because it's just like this big, almost like arena rocker type of thing going on that I just really, really liked. When I saw them live, they did not play this, but this would probably be the one song that I would have loved to have heard live that I didn't get a chance to hear.
Yeah, I believe the song was an ode to X Pac.
Actually, you know what? I stand corrected. They did play this live, and I completely forgot. They played it as one of the encores. I stand corrected. I didn't remember it, but I have to go try to find a video on YouTube. It's pretty fascinating.
Okay, cool. Yeah, there's like in the middle, there's like a very Halloweenish kind of like, you know, kind of like an acoustic guitar strum going on, like it kind of
Hmm.
slows down. The guitar kind of reminds me a little bit of Future World. This is a very cool song. I like this one quite a bit. It's one of my favorites, I would say. And just
Agreed.
really thrashy, really just kind of fun to listen to.
It's this is kind of like the end of the midway point of the album, because Endless Rain kind of kicks off the second half, and this is definitely an epic ballad, and I think it's one of their most famous tracks. It is an absolute monster, believe it or not, of a live song. It's that beautiful piano intro, and I wonder if you heard what I heard. Does it remind you of anything in that beginning? Just the piano intro at the beginning.
I'll only listen to it just to jog my.
I'll give you a hint.
Yeah, it reminds me of yeah, this I thought of this when I was listening to it. It reminded me of Land of the Miracle by Ed Guy.
Okay, that is not what I was going to say. How about All That I Bleed by Savatage.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
It was really really like it just hit me like a ton of bricks this week. This track is so good and it's so well written, and it's something about that chorus which is just absolutely perfect. In terms of like best song, not my song of the week, this is the best song on the album, and I can understand why it was such a big hit for them. They really hit a home run with this one, kind of, and just kind of threw it into the middle of the album.
Yeah, I think that you really, for the first time on the album, really get like a flavor for the vocals, because they're more on display here, because the guitars aren't going ape shit, and the drums are flying around and stuff. So you really get to hear Toshi's voice like really shine through, and you really can, I at least really hear that kind of raspy Steve Perry thing going on here. And I laughed because on the Wikipedia entry, the review for this album from Rolling Stone was November Rain minus the bullshit.
Yeah, you know something? I think that I didn't see that. That's absolutely right, and there's definitely a Guns N' Roses comparison there, but without like the Axl Rose fluff, and it's just to the point, and it's just a really good song. I think that's actually very very on point.
Yeah, I mean, it's simple but effective reviewing right there.
There you go.
And I think it was well placed. Like there were three like really like heavy songs, or three or four. I forgot what we're up to at this point. Yeah, three or four. Yeah, four like really meaty, like thrashy kind of heavy songs, and then we kind of have a little bit of a little chill time, a little Endless Rain, and to take it down a little bit, light some candles, but yeah, really nicely done, really nice power ballad, and lead up to what I assume is their most well known song from this album, Kurenai.
It's either that or Blue. It's either that or Endless Rain. I'll say this about Kurenai: interesting choice of covers for Damnation Angels. I think I like the Damnation Angels version better, but only because I've heard it first. Although I can appreciate what they were doing with the X Japan's version of it. It starts off so slow and ballad like, but then it picks up nicely. It's a well constructed song, definitely a fist pumper. Um, it's interesting to me because it's every time I listen to this version, I keep thinking of what I heard the first time, and it's hard for me to kind of like reconcile the two because they are very very different. And Damnation Angels is obviously a very very different power metal band out of the UK, but there's something about it that's very charming, and I like the original. I just happen to like the cover version better. I wonder if I would have that same feeling if I listened to them in reverse.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously the Damnation Angels version is more polished. It came out, you know, a while after this, and Pelike just has such smooth vocals, so it's a little bit different of a vocal style. I kind of, after listening to it a few times, kind of started to see it as its own entity, and not of not something like that I heard another band do first, which it's interesting when that happens. Like, it's like we mentioned Reckoning Day by Megadeth last week and Power Quest covering it. I think I've heard the Power Quest version more times than the Megadeth version. So I think like hearing the Megadeth version is the weird outlying version
Oh,
of
that's
the
funny.
two.
Yeah.
So I could totally understand how you would feel about this after hearing, that. And not to mention that was on a Damnation Angels album that was like reviewed by many as one of their favorite albums that year. That was just an excellent, excellent album. I think it was their debut, at least their first full length album. I think
Yeah.
they had an EP with the different vocalists at first. And I think we should talk about that album at some point, because it's been a while since I've gone back and listened to that. That's a classic. But this is cool. The guitar solos again, kind of give me that Halloween kind of vibe, but I like just the franticness of the vocal lines and stuff. It just it starts out like very chill for like the first 2 minutes, and then
And it
it
goes off the rails.
kicks in. But I will say, one of the things I did notice, again going back to Halloween, is that at the points where the bass lines are really noticeable, and when this song goes from the kind of mellow part and starts to get fast, you hear like this pronounced kind of bass solo leading into it, and I thought of Marcus Grosskopf like right off the bat. Like it was such a similar kind of vibe. And I know it's like, how do you differentiate bass players? But it's such like a kind of like grounded instrument where there's not a lot of experimentation and what have you. I don't know. It just kind of gave me that sort of vibe. But this is a really cool song. Definitely, I imagine it's a absolute staple on their live set.
It is. I saw it, and it was fantastic. And like I said, at the time, between that, they played that, and they played parts of Art of Life, and between the two of them, it was, obviously the highlights of the show insofar as it was the songs that I knew the best. But they played Endless Rain. They played X, which I obviously forgot, and then other songs as well, which you may know. Rusty Nail, that was another track that they played from the Dolly album. I don't know if you might not know that you know it, but you might know it. I'll talk about the live show at the end, but to make a long story short, it was definitely a highlight of the show for me because I was so familiar with it.
I have to wonder like how many other bands that I know have covered songs by X Japan, and I just didn't realize.
Yeah.
I just assumed that that Pretty Made song was a Hammerfall song for 15 years, that kind of deal. So yeah.
Exclamation is a instrumental with some real. You mentioned the bass lines. This is a song with some fantastic bass lines. I really enjoyed that part of it. It's a little. I don't know. I guess it has like this tribal drumming in the beginning, and then it gives way to this like classic '80s guitar tone. I don't love this track. It kind of reminds me of something that would have been on an old Joe Satriani album. It just didn't really do very much for me, so I don't really have much to say about it. It was kind of just a filler track.
Yeah, the intro definitely gave me some Ingve kind of
Yeah,
vibes to it. But then it
yeah.
kind of goes into like this real funky kind of thing in the middle. It's cool. It's a cool kind of just a little bit of a what do you call it? Platform for the other instruments to kind of shine without vocals. But it's clearly a lead into I guess it's the foreplay, if you will, before the orgasm.
Exactly, which is another short tune, so I guess it didn't take very long. But this has this very punky thrash thing going on. Of all the tracks on the album, I think this was one of the hardest ones for me to digest. It's like short, it's direct, it's to the point, and it definitely packs a punch. But then, like the next thing you know, it's over, and it's just like I don't know. There's something about it that didn't click with me, but a lot of people love this track. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was actually the first or one of the actual singles for it. But I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, it's like a blink and you miss it kind of orgasm. Like it's very fast, very energetic. I think that the repetitive chorus that I mentioned earlier, like it kind of gets stuck in your head just as you hear anything repeated that many times and you're probably going to get it stuck in your head. But
Weekend.
Yeah, Weekend. I like this one. I mean, it's not my favorite, but I think it's like a little bit too short to even like make a real big impression as far as like best song. But it's cool. It's just kind of just this like really fast and energetic kind of tune. So yeah, good stuff. I liked it.
Celebration is another one of those like party type tunes, and again, I think the Van Halen vibe is strong here as well. Everything down to like the singer's vocal inflection and the riff during the chorus. To me, it just screams like something that you would hear on one of those first 2 or 3 Van Halen albums. Very fun party tune. I like this one a lot. I enjoyed it every time I heard it.
Yeah, this is the song that gave me big Deep Purple vibes
Okay,
at the beginning of it. It reminded me of Highway Star.
nice.
But my favorite part of the song is that they sing celebration with 5 syllables instead of 4. It's celebrate. How do I do it? celebration. And I'm like, I had to stop and like, I'm like, wait, did they add an extra syllable to that word?
It's a
But
good word, so you want to drag it out as long as you possibly can. I mean,
yeah,
it's a,
yeah, it's like a 3-day weekend. In all seriousness though, it's just kind of a fun song, and I like that it has kind of that Deep Purple kind of vibe, and I think the chorus is super catchy. Yeah, this is a cool song. I think I'm going to make this my song of the week, as a matter of fact.
nice, nice. I thought, believe it or not, and I think it's an excellent choice. I thought you were going to go with Rose of Pain because this penultimate track has this build like epic quality to it that kind of reminds me of Keeper of the Seven Keys. And I thought you were going to choose this one. If I was going to bet money, if I was a betting man, I thought you were going to choose Rose of Pain. It has like a neoclassical style to it. Very emotional, even though I have no idea what the concept is, but I think that the title is probably pretty telling. And then about 8 minutes in, there are these screams, and I have no idea what's like going on at that point. And then it kind of gets really, really good again at the end. Very melodic, awesome guitar solo. This was one of my favorite tracks, and it's kind of buried at the end of the disc, but it's a very good tune.
Yeah, I think you had mentioned that like earlier about like it might not be the song of the week, but it's the best song on the album. This I think
Yeah.
is the best song on the album. We talk about all the time about like long tracks that don't feel long, and this is in that category because it's an almost 12-minute song. But much like I think Keeper of the Seven Keys is a great comparison point because it's about the same length. It's probably a little bit shorter, but there's just lots of different elements and tempo changes and great guitar solos. And this is a really good song. I just celebration just because of the kind of funness of it all. Kind of I gravitated a little bit more just towards that, and again just that kind of especially early on in the song, that deep purple-ish kind of vibe. But yeah, this song is excellent. Rose of Pain, really good, and I could definitely understand why you would bet on that being my song of the week without knowing. So
Close,
I
close.
actually really, I'll just kind of finish this off here. I really like the last song, Unfinished.
Really.
Yeah, just a really nice kind of way to cap things off in like a nice kind of chill ballady kind of way. Kind of reminded me of Hammerfall's debut album in that they finished the album with a ballad, which not really a lot of heavy metal bands will do. I think it's bold, kind of a bold move, but I think this is a fine choice to kind of wrap things up. Along with Endless Rain, I think it makes for two really solid kind of power ballad type songs. So, how about you? What were your thoughts on this one?
I thought it was a little anticlimactic because I did enjoy Rose of Pain so much, but I thought the strings provided a nice touch, and I'm a sucker for like that. It's very heavy on the piano sound, and to that end, I definitely enjoyed it. I don't know that it leaves you wanting more per se. I might have actually flipped this in Rose of Pain, but I can certainly understand why they put Unfinished at the end, given the way the song was constructed. So, a good, if not a great outro. So, it's interesting. I'll just say a couple of words about that live show. I had been asked, this is back in October of 2014. It was Comic-Con weekend, and X Japan was playing MSG, Madison Square Garden. The Madison Square Garden is obviously a world famous arena. It holds close to 20,000 people. And a couple of, I guess, months prior, Milton from Prog Power said that X Japan was going to be playing MSG in October, and if I had any interest in going. And I said, sure, I'd be very curious to see what this was, because if a band like X Japan was playing MSG, they must be a phenomenal live band, because it just didn't make sense to me. Like, nobody was talking about this band.
Was
And
the
they
show
were
on
not,
a weekend?
it was a Saturday night.
Oh,
So I
there you
think
go.
that explains everything. It was fascinating to me. So we get to the venue, and we had seats. I don't remember where they were, but as we walked in, an usher kind of grabs us, and I have no idea why, but he basically just hands us floor passes. So instead of sitting in whatever section we were
Get
sitting in
the,
up.
the Billy Joel treatment.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so we go down to the floor and we walk practically up, maybe 7 or 8 rows from the stage, and we proceed to watch the entire floor show from the floor. It was not sold out, but the place was jam packed with people, and it was just one of the most incredible live shows I have ever seen. In
How
terms
much?
of the,
How much were tickets? I'm curious, like what they would charge for a show like that. It's
I
just
think
so
it,
out there for me. Like,
I forget, but it was pretty expensive because again, it was like a one-off show. They may have played a show in California prior to this, but it was not a tour. It was like a 1 or 2 show thing. I think they were doing something at Comic-Con. I don't quite know what it was, but then they bounced over and did their show at X Japan. There was no opening act. They played for like 2.5 hours or something like that, and it was one of the most, like I said, they were in typical New Japan fashion. There was confetti in the crowd and bright lights and the screens behind the stage when they did the tributes to the fallen members. It was just so well done. And I've seen some pretty elaborate live shows with like Kiss and stuff like that, and this blew it out of the water. It's probably the best live show I've ever seen. Not my favorite concert or anything like that. I'm not going to say that, but just in terms of like the aesthetic, it was the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
yeah, I think of like Kiss the way you described that, where it's almost like half of the concert is the visual
Yes.
aspect.
Yes. And to be honest with you, that's why I went to see Kiss a couple of years ago, because I felt like I needed to see that performance. It was similar with this, except they did a better job, just because I think the music is 1,000 times better than Kiss. But like, it was really, really interesting. And I won't bore you with many more details, but I encourage everyone, go on YouTube, check out some of their live shows, because you'll be thoroughly impressed. Even if the music is like lukewarm for you, the live shows make it much, much better.
Cool. Yeah, that's cool. And this definitely got me to wanting to check out. And what's fun about a band that's been around for this long is usually you're like completely overwhelmed by the amount of material there would be, but this band only has like think like you said 5 full-length albums or
And they're
6.
short. You can
Yeah.
bang them out in one day if you wanted to. I mean, like they're
Yeah.
not. They're
Although I
not.
will say this was a pretty meaty album. This came in at about 65 minutes. It's
Yeah, true, true.
I was surprised. I think the first time I listened to it, I went to look where I was at, and I was like, "Oh, I'm only like halfway through." It's meaty.
Yeah, because some of the songs probably went on a little too long, like I said. But they could have cut some of this stuff. But at the end of the day, it was a very interesting listen, and I totally appreciate the request, because it was not on my radar of bands that we should talk about.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a good thing that we did. And as we mentioned before, this was a request from a fan of the show and a friend of ours, TJ DeSalvo, and he had a few things he wanted to say about this album. He said, Blue Blood has been a favorite album of mine since I first heard it when I was 16. To me, it's an embodiment of everything I love about power metal, high energy, emotionally charged songwriting, and incredible musicianship. Under the leader of Yoshiki, who has been a student of music theory and composition since the age of 4, the band's music introduced classical and symphonic elements in songs like Kurenai, Endless Rain, and Rose of Pain, nearly a decade before bands like Nightwish were attempting anything similar in Europe. The band also seemed adept at writing nearly any type of song they attempted, from blisteringly fast songs like X or Blue Blood, which wouldn't sound out of place on an early Blind Guardian album, mid-tempo rockers like Weekend, and ballads like Endless Rain. Moreover, as musicians, the band is second to none. In addition to being a world-class songwriter, Yoshiki has serious claim to the thrones of both the greatest drummer and pianist in metal, and the rest of the band are no slouches on their instruments either. I could go on, but I'll keep it short. In all, Blue Blood is a perfect storm of power metal excellence, and X Japan has more than earned their place as not only one of the greatest Japanese metal bands, but amazingly, one of the best-selling bands in all of Asia. I'm still amazed that a symphonic power metal band can lay claim to one of the most successful Asian bands of all time. Choosing a favorite song from this album is difficult, but gun to head, it would be Rose of Pain. It's almost an embodiment of the band as a whole. Beautiful symphonic arrangements drawing from Bach's fugue in G minor, no less, leading into an emotional, heavy-hitting mid-tempo section, which eventually transitions into one of the most intense and fast-paced moments on the entire album. It's a song that gives me chills whenever I hear it, and gives hints of what the band would later do on Art of Life, which to me is one of the greatest symphonic power metal albums ever made. So, Very well said by TJ. Definitely better than anything either one of us had just said. But thank you again for the request, and we do wish that everybody continues sending their requests as we make our way through the list. It's gotten a lot of a lot of praise over the years. Rolling Stone Japan ranked it the 15th greatest Japanese rock album of all time.
Yeah, yeah,
Which I had to go look at the rest of the list, and like I legit never heard of anybody that's on that list. I mean, the Japanese rock scene, there must be so much cool stuff that we just have like zero clue about.
right, right.
I don't know how many of those bands would be considered kind of just a straight up rock or heavy metal, but it's fascinating. I've found in the later years that I'm really kind of gravitating towards more modern Japanese metal bands. We saw, who did we see at Prague Power a couple years ago?
Galnerius.
Yeah, Galnerius. They put on a hell of a show and got quite the welcome from the American crowd. I believe they were I'm almost positive they were the first and up to this point only Japanese band to play at Prague Power. And another band, Love Bites, is another band that I've gotten really, really into since I discovered them. Shout out to Jeff Taft, who put them on my radar. Big fan of that. So, and it was interesting. Like, I think that, and tell me if you agree, if maybe I was able to understand the lyrics, I think I might have been able to enjoy this even more than I did. It's just that you kind of lose that connection to what the songs are about, beyond the one word of orgasm or celebration or weekend, which, I guess it lets you fill in the blanks and decide what you want those songs to mean. And if you're lucky, you can roll all three of those into one full outing.
That's actually very funny. I think that took something away for me because let's be honest. When it comes, and I think I had mentioned this to you earlier in the week. I had actually told you I want you to pick a Windrose album at some point for us to do because I just can't get into this band. And maybe it's because I know what the lyrical content is, and I don't feel like I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons. So, like for me, like that actually takes me out of it a little bit. But with this, because I have no idea what they're saying, I can't get into it as much, and it's like the opposite effect. I don't know. I think that definitely has something to it. But since we're there, I mean, to me, I'd be curious to see what your ranking is. To me, it's just a shade under a 7. It's like a 6.75 with this curiosity factor built into it. Not my favorite album, but something I can easily listen to. And I still think I prefer Art of Life better, but that's just also because sometimes you prefer your first listen or your first, idea of a band. Are you in the ballpark? You might have this a little higher than I do.
So, yeah, a little bit higher. I had it at a 7.25.
Okay.
I just thought overall it was just a very enjoyable experience. All the songs I thought were good. There was nothing really lagged or was, like I didn't think there were any bad songs. It was just a fun listen. Again, like as a lot of these episodes tend to be, it was kind of like a history lesson, another like important entry in the pantheon of metal albums that I think was missing from my studies. So I was glad to have been able to listen to it. So thanks to TJ for requesting it. I found that like some of the reviews that were quoted on Wikipedia did a really good job at kind of explaining it. But my favorite was Carl Bagay, who said, he's a Canadian music journalist. He said, Blue Blood is and will remain one of the few damn near perfect albums in my eyes for the simple fact it never lets up and never gets lazy, even when things slow down for a cheeseball ballad or two. And he said that Japan or X Japan. I was about to say Japan X. He said that X Japan created some of the boldest music that he'd ever heard, daring to thrash through tracks like X and Orgasm, serve up epics like Rose of Pain and Kurenai, and deliver a song like Endless Rain that Elton John would be happy to call his own, all on the same album. So I thought that was really well put. And yeah, this was fun. I'm glad that we got to give it a listen.
Nice. I look forward to more requests coming in. Definitely keep them coming. We have a laundry list, but we will get to them, I promise you. A couple news items, which I thought were definitely worth noting. Avantasia's release date for their new album, A Paranormal Evening with the the Moonflower Society, October 21st. Needless to say, I am excited about that. If the single that was released is any indication, this is going to be very, very good. So a couple of months away from that. And then Lacuna Coil is working, according to Blabbermouth, on their 10th studio album. I can't believe they have that many albums at this point, but they are going on tour in the U.S. This September, I believe, and will ultimately be releasing some sort of new music this fall as well. So I look forward to that. They are a band that, like, I've never loved them, but I've liked a lot of what they've done, if that makes sense.
That makes complete sense. I'm very pumped for the next Avantasia album. I feel like that they've really taken, and it might have something to do with Ed Guy kind of being on hiatus because of Avantasia's work, but it feels like they're doing some of their best stuff these last few albums. And I think maybe it's just because Tobias can be kind of uber focused on the one band. But it's always just exciting to see who's going to be involved and who's going to do guests. We saw Ralph Sheepers from Primal Fear on that first single. So, yeah, I'm excited. I'm always excited for new Avantasia. And as far as Lacuna Coil goes, I was flabbergasted. I was in the car yesterday driving back from dinner, and I was listening to satellite radio. And what was it? Liquid Metal? Is that what I was listening to? Yeah, the Liquid Metal channel, and they had played the new Lacuna Coil single, and then followed right up by a Sabaton song, which I'm fairly certain that was the first time I ever heard Sabaton on the radio. So that was kind of a cool surprise. But yeah, I always look forward to Lacuna Coil as well. Just another band that I feel like is so timeless. They've been around since the mid '90s, I believe, and just continue to just churn out like good stuff. And Christina Scabia is like beyond is like incapable of aging. I mean,
It is
I was shocked
amazing.
when I found out that she was like in her mid to late 40s because she looks like she's 30 years old. It's very impressive.
Got good genes. Good genes you people have. I have to say, it's very, very impressive. I'm beyond jealous. So congratulations for that. That should be fun as well. And that brings us to next week. I feel like I have not requested, or I guess chosen, an album in what seems like forever. So I wanted to kind of reassess where we're at. And I said to myself, we've done 100 episodes. We've obviously done this X Japan request, but now it's kind of like a reset for me anyway, just because we crossed that 100 barrier. And I realized we have not done any Black Sabbath, which I feel like is absolutely sinful. And we've had requests for it. So we're going back to the very beginning, and we're going to do the first Black Sabbath album from 1970, going back to February of 1970. We're going to do their debut album, Black Sabbath. It is amazing that we have not talked about this band, and we'll go from one singer that I didn't understand with X Japan to another unintelligible singer with Ozzy. I feel like it's a nice segue into what we were doing, but I can't believe that this album came out 52 years ago. That is nuts.
I I have a fun retelling of a story I heard on one of Chris Jericho's podcasts about one of the songs from this album, but I'll save it for next week. But yeah, this is an album that I'm not as familiar with as I should be. So again, adding to the studies of the stuff that I should be aware of. I think I have I'm trying to remember which album. I have one of their albums on vinyl.
Do you really?
Yeah, it might be Paranoid, but I'm not sure. I'll have to go
Nice.
check the pile. Could be might be volume 4. I'm just looking at all the cover art and seeing what looks familiar. But I don't think I have the original album on vinyl. But yeah, that's a cool choice. I look forward to that, and it gives me. Oh my god! It feels like, I mean, Power Quest wasn't really choosing an album; it was kind of taking the easy way out and choosing the whole band. So I'm gonna have to put some thought into what I will choose next week. But yeah, I think we can finally kind of get back to our usual schedule without metal festivals and 100th episodes and things like that getting in the way. So yeah, you're right. It does feel like it's been a while since we've just done our usual thing. So
Looking forward to getting back to it, and I feel like no better place to start than kind of where it all started, at least according to many. So, Black Sabbath's debut album next week, and I hope you enjoy the week. And I will catch you soon, and we'll catch up and talk some early Doom.
I find it very interesting how long we've managed to put off doing a Metallica album, but the streak continues.
It continues, but I assure you, not for long. It's on the list. And shout out to Keith. It will not be Saint Anger, but I digress. That's a story for another day.
No, I mean, I'll say this: we'll do Saint Anger before we do Lulu.
Yes, I can assure you. I can assure you of that. That I can't even listen to. So, sorry for another day. Enjoy the week, bud. I look forward to it. Enjoy the holiday weekend, everyone, and we will catch you next week with some Black Sabbath.
Weekend, weekend,
Take it easy,
weekend.
kid.